You ever have one of those neighbors? The kind that thinks the world is theirs to take your time, your peace, even your property. Yeah, I had one too. Name's Luke Carter. I run a small farm just outside Crestwood Estates, a little slice of heaven passed down through generations. I loved that land. The smell of fresh hay in the morning, the proud clucking of my hens, the way the sunsets turned the fields to gold. Life was simple. Peaceful until she showed up, Debbie Hanson, self-proclaimed queen of the HOA. And she decided that my chickens and my eggs belonged to her. What started with a stolen breakfast turned into a full-blown war. But see, I'm not the kind of man who lets a bully win, and this time, karma was about to come home to roost. Luke didn't waste any time. The next morning, he called his old friend and partner in pranks, Travis Moore, a man whose knowledge of rotten farm tricks was legendary across Springfield County. Over greasy diner coffee and scrambled eggs, Luke laid out the situation. Travis listened, a grin spreading wider with every detail. "So you want to give her a taste of her own medicine," Travis said, tapping a finger against his mug. Luke nodded grimly. "I want her to regret ever stepping foot on my land." "You're talking classic country justice," Travis said, laughing. "Well, my friend, I just happen to have something special." Later that day, a crate showed up at Luke's farm. Inside were a dozen eggs that had been carefully aged, forgotten, at the back of Travis' old storage shed. They weren't just bad, they were biological weapons. With a careful hand, Luke planted them inside the nesting boxes, making sure they looked fresh and tempting. Then he waited. It didn't take long, right on schedule. Debbie sashayed into his yard 2 days later, clutching her oversized tote bag like she was on a luxury shopping spree. Luke, watching from behind the curtains, could barely contain his smirk. Debbie didn't even hesitate. She grabbed a handful of eggs, stuffed them into her bag, and marched triumphantly back across the fence. Luke leaned back, arms crossed, savoring the image. Now the fun part. The explosion of drama arrived faster than even Luke anticipated. By noon, the entire neighborhood knew something was wrong. It started with the smell, a rancid, eye-watering stench that seeped out of Debbie's open windows, floating through the manicured streets of Crestwood Estates like an invisible fog of vengeance. Then came the screams. Luke was repairing a fence post when he heard it. A high-pitched shriek of pure primal horror. The kind of sound you only hear when someone's pride shatters in real time. He walked up to his porch and casually opened the neighborhood group chat on his phone. There it was. Debbie Hanson. "Who did this? Who gave me tainted eggs? My house smells like a toxic waste dump. My brunch is ruined. This is an act of war." Luke nearly dropped his phone, laughing. Responses flooded in within seconds. Travis. "Maybe you shouldn't steal from your neighbors. Debs, Mrs. Bennett." "Stealing eggs. Wow. So much for community spirit." "That's beautiful." Officer Harding. "Technically, that's trespassing. Might want to be careful there." Debbie's attempts to defend herself were even more pitiful. She tried claiming that she had been gifted the eggs, that it was an innocent mistake. But nobody was buying it. Screenshots of her past HOA emails where she had complained about Luke's unsightly chickens and suggested finding a way to control farm nuisances started circulating. The tide was turning fast. And for the first time, Debbie's once fearsome reputation in the neighborhood was crumbling. She wasn't the law anymore. She was the joke. Luke, sipping lemonade on his porch, smiled to himself. Justice had been served, or so he thought. Because Debbie wasn't done yet, she was angry. She was humiliated. And now, she was plotting something far bigger and far more reckless. The real war had only just begun. 3 days later, Luke found out just how far Debbie was willing to go. He was loading hay into the barn when he saw them 2 sheriff's deputies pulling into his driveway. Their lights weren't flashing, but the sight still made Luke's stomach knot for a second. Out stepped Deputy Morales, a straight shooter Luke had known since high school, and a younger deputy he didn't recognize. "Morning, Luke," Morales said, removing his sunglasses. Got a complaint filed against you. Luke wiped his hands on his jeans. Let me guess, Debbie Hansen. Morales gave a grim nod. She's accusing you of harassment, intentional property damage, and theft. Luke let out a low whistle, shaking his head. She stole my eggs, trespassed onto my property. How am I the criminal here? Morales looked uncomfortable. I get it, but complaints like this trigger an automatic investigation. Luke crossed his arms. Well, you're welcome to look around. I've got nothing to hide. The deputy spent 20 minutes poking around. Checked his coop, his fence line, even the camera mounted on the barn. A smart move Luke had installed months ago when Karen had first started acting out. When they were done, Morales sighed. No evidence you did anything wrong, but you might want to lawyer up Luke. She's pushing this hard, filing for a restraining order. Luke felt a flash of heat rise to his face. Debbie wasn't just trying to embarrass him anymore. She was trying to destroy him. As soon as the deputies left, Luke called his cousin Rachel a bulldog of a lawyer who had fought and won cases against far nastier snakes than Debbie. After hearing the story, Rachel laughed. She filed harassment charges after stealing your property and trespassing. Yep, Luke said, his jaw tight. Rachel chuckled darkly. Good. She's just handed you everything you need to bury her. Rachel moved fast. Within 48 hours, Luke had filed a counter-lawsuit for trespassing, theft, defamation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. And he had proof video footage of Debbie sneaking into his yard on multiple occasions, grabbing eggs, crossing the fence without permission. Better yet, he had neighborhood witnesses ready to testify that Debbie had boasted about getting free organic eggs whenever she wanted. Word traveled fast through Crestwood Estates. By the time the first court hearing was scheduled, Debbie's reputation was in full freefall. The day of the hearing, the courthouse lobby was packed. Neighbors who had once feared Debbie now showed up for moral support and maybe a little entertainment. Luke walked in wearing his best boots and a crisp button-down shirt, nodding politely to the crowd. Debbie showed up 20 minutes late, sunglasses hiding her bloodshot eyes, her once flawless hair frizzed from stress. When the judge called the case, Luke's heart pounded once, but he stayed calm. Rachel demolished Debbie's case in under 15 minutes. Every accusation Debbie had thrown at Luke was ripped apart. No evidence of harassment, no property damage, no theft, because they were his eggs. Then Rachel pulled up the footage. On the giant screen behind her, the court watched in silence as Debbie climbed Luke's fence, scooped eggs into her designer bag, and scurried away like a rat. When the video ended, the courtroom was so silent, you could hear a feather drop. Debbie's lawyer, a greasy, desperate man Luke had never seen before, tried to salvage it. This is just a misunderstanding, he mumbled. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman who clearly had zero patience for nonsense, leaned forward. Miss Hansen, she said coolly, not only is there overwhelming evidence of trespassing and theft, but your actions following the incident, including the public selling of spoiled goods, show reckless endangerment. Frankly, you're lucky he's only asking for damages. Debbie looked like she was about to collapse. The gavel slammed down. Luke was awarded full damages for the value of his stolen property. Debbie was ordered to pay his legal fees. A public apology was mandated to be issued to the neighborhood. And salt in the wound, the judge issued a restraining order against Debbie. She wasn't allowed within 300 feet of Luke's property ever again. Debbie slumped in her chair, humiliated beyond repair, and Luke tipped his hat politely to the judge, turned on his heel and walked out of the courtroom to a wave of whispered cheers. It was over. The battle he hadn't asked for but refused to lose had ended. And it ended exactly how it should, with truth, with justice, and with a whole lot of well-deserved karma.